conversation. So sorry, everyone in Facebook land and YouTube world, and where's Obi? Oh, and we're on the His Ride page. We had some technical difficulties. I am in Texas at the Eagles International Training Institute conference, and but we will not disappoint our audience by providing good conversation. Gotta say hi to my babe. Hey, babe. Miss you.
Hey,
Love you. Hey. Woo, woo, woo. Okay. Enough of that. Um, so, we are going to delve into the conversation about infertility, but from the man's perspective. When I thought of this topic, it was after we did the one with wives who had dealt with infertility. And I believe I was talking to you, Big G, and I was like, you know what? I don't think I've ever read anything or, learned of anybody talking about men and their perspective of being the supporting partner when their wives are going through this experience. And then I did some research and could not find anything. Like, not an article, maybe a couple little blurbs, but nothing significant about the man's perspective. And I think it's so crucial, and I think it's horrible that that men are left out. It's like once you all give up the goods, and we all know what the goodies are, right? Once you give up the goodies, then it's like you're discardable. Like, I remember going through it with Big G, and Big G, you definitely can delve into this and talk about it. Um, she talked to us both, right, about the different options, right? Surrogacy or adoption or having a donated egg, right? She talked to us about those things. But as far as talking to Big G, maybe offering counseling to Big G or offering a safe space for him to express his feelings, none of that. Now, all of those things were offered to me, right? Because I was the one getting the shots and going to a weekly doctor's appointment, getting my blood drawn every week, monitoring my ovulation, monitoring what the drugs were doing inside my body, what they weren't doing, all of those things. But Big G, you want to delve in? There wasn't really any conversation with you after the goodies were given up.
no, it really wasn't. I hadn't even thought about that.
Right, right.
It
And
was
how
just
you
all the
do it.
conversation was based towards us, but it was actually meant for you.
Exactly. So it's clouded as a us conversation, but it really is geared towards the wife, right? The female in the relationship that is going to carry the baby or going to go through the treatment. John, George, or Terrence, do you want to delve into that particular area? How, in the beginning stages of the experience, nothing is talked about or anything with you guys? Or maybe you had a different experience.
No, I was strictly the donor.
Sean was like, I gave up the goodies. Strictly the donor. Terrence, was it the same way for you? Hey, is there
Um,
bacteria?
and I don't know. I still hear an echo, so I
Okay,
don't
let
know
me
who's
mute
on.
myself. I'll mute myself. Sometimes it's
Okay.
me. Okay, go ahead, love.
I think for me, we experienced miscarriages back to back. So our first two um, successful pregnancies were ended by miscarriage 7 weeks into each pregnancy. And so I think for us, um, during the first one, of course, there was no counsel, no books to read, um, no real guidance, not even from our church. After we got back from the hospital, after having the procedure done, my pastor sat us in a room and he said, well, there are other people who have experienced this and it's kind of common. It's very common. And I'm like, yeah, but it ain't never happened to us, you know? Um, and so, yeah, there was really no nowhere I could turn for support or for encouragement or even what scriptures to read. Like I had nothing. And so I put all of my energy into trying to help my spouse cope as best she could, and kind of put my feelings in the pocket in my back pocket and just kind of kept going. And then our second pregnancy ended the same way, and this time I had nobody to turn to. Not even I couldn't, like, everybody I called was unavailable. And so it was probably the loneliest experience that I can recall in my life. There was nobody to talk to, no one to turn to, nobody to call. All my boys, were unavailable. So that was my experience. It was horrible. I wouldn't wish it on my worst enemy.
Oh, that's a lot. That's a lot to carry as a man, as the pastor figure in the house, right? You're pastoring over your family, um, and trying to give comfort and support, but you don't have comfort and support either. Wow, George, did you want to speak to it? You're on mute, George. Can you hear me?
Here.
Okay.
No, I on this I really don't have too much to say. You know what I mean? Because I haven't experienced it. So right now I would probably be more of a listener and learn, you know what I'm saying? Because I really haven't even really been introduced to anyone that has gone through any of that. Like what Terrence was just saying, you know what I mean? None of my friends. So no, right now, this is just a little, I'm going to be a listener for this one right now. Okay.
No problem with being a listener.
Yeah.
So I know it's
Yeah.
all good.
Right,
It's all
right, right.
good. Yeah. Because as a friend to possibly some friend of yours that might go through it or
Yes.
might experience it, you'll have some foundation and basis in order to talk to them, right?
Yes, right.
And that's important, I think, definitely as men in general, but definitely in the Black community. Infertility is not a subject that I know it's not a subject that my mom talked to me about. There was no expectation that I would be infertile in any way or would have to experience it in any way. And so I really didn't have any expectation after Big G and I got married. My thought was, okay, now that I'm married, now you get pregnant, right? That's
Right.
let's go. It's for the 1, 2, 3. And it didn't happen that way for us. John, what I know that your wife Shannon was on my prior show, and she talked about having the refrigerator in the hotel because you all had to spend some weeks, right, or months in the hotel for some residency experiences that you were having, displacement that you all were having, and the drugs and keeping that. And can you talk a little bit about that experience of working through that from your perspective and watching her go through all of that too?
I think the biggest thing is actually watching your wife or significant other go through it. Just like these other gentlemen, we don't talk about it in our community. So I was blessed because I had a particular business that was near UIC Medical District, and I had a lot of doctors as customers. So I was open to them because, of course, I was. I just didn't know. I wasn't familiar. So I think the most hurtful thing, we were living in Beverly at that particular time, and Shannon had to drive to Naperville for the 50 hormone injections. And I don't know too much about the hotel, but we had the refrigerator in our bedroom, so we didn't even have to go downstairs. You just you cope. I mean, you're actually living through actual trying possibly grief situation or what have you. I mean, our specialist was already preparing us for the second cycle until, the one egg that we had, shot to her uterus like Mike Tyson and, bam. But, so then we thought, okay, yeah, Yahtzee in terms of fertility, the egg split. But our daughter being who she was, she consumed the sac before her sister can be formed, which happens a lot in IVF. So, and we're perfectly fine with one, but she was a 2.7% chance IVF baby, and it's it's the most humbling thing that you can ever experience, because you really realize that you have absolutely no control over anything at all. So as Christians, we're supposed to, immediately know that, but to actually live situations that, just put it on the big screen for you, or just, totally engulf you. It's surreal, for lack of a better word. It's really, really surreal. And you just feel like you're watching another life of yours go by you, and you're not understanding what happened. I mean, Shannon had to have 2 surgeries. I had to have a surgery just to even get 2.7% chance. So it's it was quite a bit. I remember we were coming from my surgery after it was finished, and somebody had been rude to her on the elevator, and I could hear it, but I'm walking so slowly because of the surgery. So then, so you are humbled in so many ways, because I mean, once I got to the elevator, the little man saw me and then kind of just put his head down, but he had no idea. If he had any idea that I couldn't do anything, I mean, I barely, it took me 10 minutes to walk to the elevator, but nonetheless, that was just a little excerpt of it. But you're vulnerable as the husband, as the partner, seeing your spouse or whomever, your loved one, go through it so much. It really, it really, like we say in Christianity, it just gets you naked, and, in reference to you're bearing all, you just really don't know how to stop it. It's kind of like you rolling down a roller coaster and you can't stop it. You just have to go with the ride. So to make it try to seem as.
No, we didn't have a refrigerator in our bedroom, but in the refrigerator, it has crispers. So one of the crispers that you normally use for your vegetables, or you use for your potatoes, or you use for onions or something like that, was dedicated to IVF. That was where. And then what was it, babe? Was it the bottom row of the refrigerator full of just product? And then I had this like TV, like think of a 40-inch or 50-inch TV box, and that's the size of the box that's set in the middle of the kitchen, full of drugs, syringes, just stuff. And all of the stuff, I had to watch videos, understand how to insert, and he had to learn how to insert. Speaking of that, Big G, tell them about you having to give me shots.
Yeah, that was I can't stand needles myself.
Leave it off.
So
Did you practice on the orange first?
no.
We didn't even know to do
Right
that,
to
John.
it.
No
Yeah,
one
we
told
didn't
us
even
to
think
do
about
that.
We're right to it. But I think, after the first couple of shots and seeing Keena go through what she's going through, I think it started off with the hot flashes first. And the hot flashes, we both kind of giggled about it. It was a little funny, but shortly afterwards, starting to see her go through it on the regular started bothering me. And then all the other stuff that went along. And to be honest, after so long, I would check in here and there. You okay? You still want to do this? And I didn't want to seem unsupportive on that. But after a while, to be honest, I went straight to more concerned about her than the baby. It was just, after a while, I was just like, you know what? we can stop this right now. But I didn't want to say it because I know how she was feeling. So I was at that point of, I don't want to be, somebody that say, hey, let's just stop this right now. I don't like what it's doing to you. And that might crush her. And at the same time, I wanted to be supportive. So it was just like, I was in a place of like, man, I don't know what to say, which way to go with this. But I'm sitting up here watching her and it's really bothering me. So my mind kind of went to a different place. I was there, but I wasn't there for a little bit. I was there for the support and everything. But at the same time, I was kind of trying to block a lot of stuff because it was bothering me so much to see her going through something. And then uh, after the false pregnancy, it was over with then. It was just like, no, I don't want to go through this no more.
Yeah, the false positives are
Yeah, the false positive.
Let me put some definition to that, babe, real quick. False positives are when you test positive that you're pregnant, but you go to the doctor and get your blood drawn and you're not pregnant. And the reason why you have a false positive with an at-home test is because of the nature of the drugs and what they're doing hormonally in the woman's body, that it can produce whatever is in the testing of the tube. It can tell it that, oh yeah, she's pregnant, but in all actuality you're not. And so for me, having a false positive was hope. It was excitement. As much as I didn't want to get excited, I was excited. I wanted him to be excited right along with me. If I wanted to call it foolishness, in the foolery or in the fantasy, like be happy. Let's just be happy in this moment. But to be crushed like the next day and having to press past being crushed and go to work. Because my appointments were at 7 a.m. They were at 7 a.m. twice a week. And I would go at 7 a.m. and go from there to work. So you mean I'm either going to be crushed when I get to work, or I'm going to be full of anxiety because I'm waiting on a test, right? So it's one emotion or the other. It's one extreme or the other, and it was never an even keel. And so I appreciate you saying that, Big G, about not wanting me to go through that, and you not wanting to not seem supportive. Terrence, what was that some of what you experienced too? Not, having all your emotions and having to put a cap on it. I think you talked about that a little while ago. You had to put a cap on it because of everything that Regina was going through, right?
Yeah. So as a husband, you want to be supportive, you want to be there emotionally and spiritually, but it's difficult trying to navigate her feelings, our feelings, and my feelings, if that makes sense. As men, we tend to be taught to kind of just deal with whatever it is we need to deal with in our own time, in our own space, and we don't get a whole lot of grace when it comes to that. We just kind of have to figure it out in the moment. But I think our emotion piece was difficult for a whole host of reasons, primarily, trying to be supportive of one another, but not, if I can be honest, we weren't necessarily really 100% honest with one another about where we really were. We never did in vitro. We never did any of those types of things. One, because it was very cost prohibitive. From what I know from friends that have done it, it's extremely expensive. And I didn't want to put that financial burden on our young family at that time. And so finding creative ways to say that it was a lot of angst and anxiety, trying to figure out how to tell your wife, hey, look, I want a baby too, but man, I'm not willing to come up off this much cash And if God is not saying it's time, so be it. And that's hard to say. That's hard to hear. But I think in the moment, my heart was more so concerned about our relationship more so than our being parents, because I think there was some areas of growth that we needed to solidify before bringing a child into that mix. I had a lot of growing up to do. I had a lot of maturing to do. And I knew, I think ultimately deep down, we know where we really are. And sometimes, depending on your spouse or your mate, depending on their receptivity, sometimes you can let them know that, and sometimes you can't. And so sometimes you have to fake it till you make it. You gotta act like you here when you're really here. And so just the emotional mood swings that this whole trying to become a parent piece placed on our relationship was taxing. I remember after our first miscarriage, everything was about getting pregnant. Everything. Our intimacy was about getting pregnant. It was not about us connecting. It was about, we got to get pregnant. You know what I mean? Because in her mind, she's trying to figure out what's wrong with her. Right? She ate everything she was supposed to eat, exercised like she was supposed to exercise. We did all the things we knew to do, but God saw different. And I think spiritually, in hindsight, looking back on it, it was a very, very valuable lesson for the both of us in that we have our plans, but God has the ultimate plan. And as bad as you want something, God knows what's best for you. And that's a hard saying. There's throughout the Bible, there are these hard sayings. And that's one of those hard sayings that, yeah, we have our heart's desire, but God ultimately knows what's best for us. And in that moment, and at that time, I was nowhere near ready to be a father. Not that you're ever ready, but at that time, there was a lot of growing up Terrence needed to do. And so trying to create the space where we can have those difficult conversations in an already heightened emotional place, that was a challenge. It was a real challenge.
Listen, you said a whole lot. You said a whole lot, T, because I can honestly say, of course, hindsight is what? 2020. Vomiting in the car, never telling Big G about that. Getting sick, having emotional breakdowns over nothing by myself, being upset with him over the toothpaste tube top not being on the tube, just over nothing, because the emotional roller coaster that the drugs takes you through, because it's regulating your hormones, has an effect on how you function. And if you do not grab hold to that, like you were talking about, T, having those difficult conversations with the one that you are in relationship with, can take a toll. So if you're not having those conversations with your partner, right, you're holding all of that in, it's the very idea that you're going to produce a child in that type of stressful incubator is not going to happen, first of all. And if it happens, then likely you could miscarry or something else, right? Because all of that stress is internalized. And so definitely you spoke to that, Terrence, about not having those hard conversations. Big G, I definitely remember one time I was driving from the doctor's going to work, and you said something to me, and I said, "You don't want a baby." I remember like screaming at you. and crying, like profusely crying while I'm driving. You know what a baby, you know what a baby would be. I'm just all broken. I mean, just total meltdown. And do you remember that? You don't remember that? You were just silent. You were silent. Let me tell you, babe. You were silent. You were just like, and I can see in hindsight, like, he didn't have a clue what to say to me, because anything he said was going to be wrong. It was just going to be wrong. But I remember like different pockets of emotional situations that you had nothing to do with. You had nothing to do with those. And as we're talking about it now, just having recall, publicly, I'm so sorry. It was the drugs. What is the song? The alcohol, blame it on the alcohol. Well, blame it on the drugs. It was the drugs, babe. But John, did you have any of those experiences that Terrence was talking about, having those hard conversations or avoiding those hard conversations?
Oh, well, you go straight caveman just for survival. So let's be real about it. If I don't touch it, it won't have any tone to it, because we're not even going to get into any, verbiage about it. So, it's really scary, because I did not even go back to my faith. It was such a survival thing. It was faith in terms of prayer of the end game. But in those moments, you're so trying to just survive the situation, because those hormone shots, they change the woman that you in love with and what have you. It was pure survival, to be honest with you. And because I have OCD about numbers, to be honest with you, if it wasn't for knowing that and being cognizant that 1 in 5 persons have fertility issues out of this entire world of 8 billion people, I don't think I could even rationalize it, to be honest with you. I didn't dare even try to Google anything. I didn't want to know anything, and I didn't want to hear her story either. It was, I knew it was our problem, and I was mature enough to say that, it was our problem, but I didn't want to know anything else. I just wanted to get through it and hopefully successful. I could be like a Tony Randall at 70, still having kids from fertility tubes. So that was my end game.
Oh my. George, hearing the gentleman's stories, how would you support them? If this was now, what kinds of things do you think would be helpful for a person that's never experienced it, watching their friend experience something like this?
Well, now that you bring this up, and I had forgot about Tanya's sister, Pilar, because she was also experiencing the same thing. You know what I mean? And I got to watch her with everybody else's child and doing for them the things that she wants to do for her own, because she's experiencing the same thing. So with you all, what we're discussing here, very touchy. My heart goes out. You know what I mean? Not sad, but yeah, I understand. But for me, like I said, it was total opposite. Everything I put my hands in a cookie jar, I got in trouble. So not rubbing anything or saying anything, but for me it was different. Every time, looked like everything I breathed on. You know what I mean? Then I got to the point where I didn't want to touch anything, because I'm like, man, every time I look at somebody, they look like they want to get pregnant. And I'm just totally honest. It was the opposite for me. But let me share something with you. Tanya, this woman I'm with now, right? It took me the longest to get her pregnant out of every female that I ever been with. And this one I was trying. And I believe it took at least 2 years. And we spent that much time together, anywhere from 2 to 3 years before she even conceived. And then I was shocked. I was like, no. but no, this is real touchy. You know what I mean? And it's hard to talk about. And even with a friend, you know what I mean? To just sit down with somebody and discuss this type of thing. It's hard. Very hard.
Yeah. And I don't want this whole conversation to be so daunting. But
Right.
No perspective to this was real life for all of us, with the exception of George. This was real life for all of us, experience it, and I wanted to give voice to the male perspective because I never even thought about G being in a cave emotionally, not being able to talk to me because I'm an emotional basket case, right? Not having that outlet, not having that mental or emotional intimacy and connection, and the physical intimacy, as Terrence talked about, was geared towards getting pregnant. And I do want to bring some other perspective to this conversation, is that you are timed when you're going through this process as to when you are supposed to have sex, when you are supposed to be intimate in order to get pregnant. It's on a schedule. It's so mechanical. It's not feeling. It's time. It's 8 o'clock. I'm ovulating. Let's go. You know, it's very detaching, I would say. It's kind of like you're walking down the street to get from A to B. So we go from A to B and we walk down the street. This is what we do. And so with that,
I still enjoy it.
I was about to say that was actually the best part for me because it was mandated.
Well, tell the truth, shame the devil. Yay! This is real conversation that we have. Amen. Shame the devil.
It wasn't like that for me.
It was daunting for you, T?
Not daunting. It was mechanical. There was not a lot of emotion connected to it. And I need that. I mean, not that I'm not gonna say I didn't enjoy it, but I need that emotional piece to it too. And I think because men are stereotyped to be unfeeling, uncaring, unemotional, just let's take it, whatever. No, there's some of us brothers out there who appreciate the emotional side of things too. I think my wife would probably agree. Of the two of us, I'm probably more emotional about most things than she is. And that's
I would agree.
Yeah. And I think there's a place for that.
Yeah.
It just depends. I think how you're wired, maybe in vocation or what have you. I mean, I'm in business, so it's always the end game for us, the bottom line. So for me, it was just like I was scoring because I had multiple times that were mandated, and ovulation was like the damn lottery, or I was on the French Riviera, I'm off the coast. I mean, I was chilling, so I forgot how many days it was, but I was like, I was golden. I mean, so.
Hey, I respect that. But I think for me, knowing in the back of my head that the only reason we're connecting is because of this, the outcome to have a baby, kind of left it hollow for me. And not being able to have open conversation, what's up, Khalid, about those kinds of things made me even that much more emotionally distant from my spouse, and that I think that weighed more heavily on me than anything.
I hear where you're coming from on that part.
Go ahead.
You make me sound like a criminal. Okay, well, I guess
you're not a criminal, guy.
I mean, you call me a bandit or whatever, but I was excited during the whole ovulation every month. It was some Yahtzee stuff. It was just like straight, like, okay, thank you. Because like I said, you're both trying to do the end game, and there was no no's, there was no possibility of no's. So
But I'm kind
Gino,
of
were you
like,
gonna say something? Go ahead. I'm sorry.
no, I'm like Terrence. So it's got to be some emotion in it. So you know what I mean? Like you said, it's like clockwork for you. So how can you produce if it's just work? Where is the love? Where, you know what I mean? Like he said, it just becomes mechanical, a routine. Yeah. So I'm asking. So
Is it mechanical?
yeah, how can you produce when
Big
Well,
G?
when that
I
stage?
believe if you're goal oriented, how you're wired, I just think, I think it just happens like that. It's like second level of Maslow's hierarchy, safety and security. So you were safe and secure in the infertility part, being 1 in 5 in the whole world that have infertility, issues. 1 out of 5 people, you basically are just, quantifiably just trying to get to the result. So if you had to be a utilitarian and, do it, or you were happy and excited like I was during the ovulation period because I couldn't get a no ever. So, I mean, really, it's survival. It's like whatever works for you when you're in that situation. And my point of view. So, like in business, I'm wired for the end result. So I just think it's just how that human being is wired, in my opinion. So.
Big G, was there something you wanted? It was a comment that you wanted to make, and then we're gonna bring Khalid in this conversation.
No, I was just saying I can with Terrence, I can agree with what he was saying. The times I did feel like a piece of me, so it was cool.
I don't treat you like you were a piece of me. Actually, but you had the goods, so. Khalid, you want to jump in here?
Okay, you got to bring me up to speed. What have I missed?
So we were just talking about, the mechanical. I'm using the word mechanical, but the ovulation period and having timed sex, having timed intimacy, and you're on a schedule. And Terrence and Gino were like, you need some emotion in this. You need some. And John is like, hey, lottery, you can't say no to me. Yay. In game, let's get it going. Let's get it cracking. So, those are two different perspectives. We've also talked about them being emotionally in a cave, right? Not having their partner available to talk to about how they feel about what their partner is going through. We didn't practice on an orange. Was it John? John said, did you practice on an orange and giving a shot? No, he straight up started giving me shots. So we didn't know. Nobody told us to practice on a piece of fruit. But, just the administration of it all. We've talked about housing the drugs. Now, Terrence didn't have that experience. They had 2 miscarriages back to back. So they never went through IVF because of the expense of it all. And let me just put not a disclaimer out there, but if you are a couple, look into your insurance. Because there are insurances that pay for everything. I happen to have one of those plans, Blue Cross Blue Shield. HMO paid for everything. I think Big G and I paid for 1 medication. That was it. And when I said I had the size of a box for a 40-inch TV of drugs sitting in the middle of the kitchen, and then the drugs that had to be refrigerated were in the crisper. There was a crisper dedicated to IVF. The bottom row of the refrigerator was dedicated to IVF because that's how many drugs I had, but my insurance paid for it. So check your insurance, check your policies to see what part of it that they will pay for. And in addition to, I know there's young women out here who are goal-oriented and career-minded, and there's nothing wrong with wanting to establish yourself before you make that step of getting married or having children before you get married. However, your situation may be, or whatever choice you may be, check into freezing your eggs. No one talked to me about that. That is not a conversation that happens in the Black community. That is not a conversation that my mom had with me because that wasn't something she experienced. She gave me, she got pregnant naturally, right? that wasn't something that was experienced in our family. So why would she talk to me about that, right? And so, but that is a conversation that I have had with 30-somethings, right, coming up to 40-somethings, about freezing their eggs. I wish somebody had told me that. You know, we might have had some possibilities other than the lack of possibilities that I ended up having, and we did not have children. But John and Shannon, they have one baby girl, and the egg split for them, but baby girl consumed the other egg, so only one birth happened, which is not unusual, you guys. It's not a I don't want you all to think it's like Gremlins or Pac-Man, right?
No, she was just on a power pill. So she's like that. She's like that at 10 years old. So
you got a precious baby girl who's strong-willed.
But believe me, trust. I mean, we were so excited and talking about 6 goals. We thought it was twins, and it's just what Terrence said about how you may plan for something, and God's like, it's just not going to happen, you know.
Right.
And also, Khalid, I just want to tell you, we were telling the background of it. So my child was a 2.7% chance IVF in the first round.
Wow.
So the doctor was already preparing us for this cycle. So that was another thing that was actually a positive. But, you know, we were also talking with Terrence about how vulnerable this situation is and how you really just don't have any energy to talk to your partner, wife, or whatever about it, because you're straight on survival mode, you know, and you're just trying to get through it. I mean, it was just like my life was passing by me, and I'm just like, okay, I hope I'm, can be successful. What helped me though, Keena and Khalid, and I get off the mic, is Al Roker being married 13 years and couldn't get pregnant until they actually got educated about this situation. So he being on TV every morning, and got a chance to listen to his story with his wife, that really helped. So.
Got it. That's
you know what? Before you go, Khalid, George is listening. And so from his perspective, he never had this experience before, but being a male and possibility of having a male friend that might go through this, or being able to talk to someone else, he just wanted to listen in on the conversation, and that's the perspective he's going from. But go ahead, Khalid, join right in.
All right, guys, again, I apologize. I had a work commitment I had to take care of, but I'm glad I'm part of this conversation. Question for you. So as a man who never had to go through this process, right, but wants to understand it, because I do marriage therapy, right? So that might come up with future couples that I might have to work with. What messages would you want to give somebody who's inexperienced with this? This might be their first time going through this, or for the naive who say, well, man, y'all got to do it the natural way. What's wrong with you? What's wrong? Educate me, somebody who has no working knowledge about this other than what I've hered or read.
Big G.
I was just gonna say that it appears that each and every one of us had different experiences.
Okay.
So the one of the things that you can really say is, however which way they come up with doing it is fine if it works for them. You do have the people out here who do it naturally and all that. That's what I was a big component of. That's what I wanted. But we tried it the other way as well. But whatever works for that individual, because sometimes you can get stuck on one thing and miss out totally on something that would have worked for you, but because your mind is just stuck on when you determine to do it this way. So whatever which way, if it's out there, then they can, whatever which way works for them. That's the advice I would give.
Got it.
And let's be real about it. I mean, this right behind finances and infidelity will kill a marriage, or a relationship. Let's be very, very clear about that. That's just not because we may have goals about it, but it's just that carnal of I said earlier about getting naked, it's just that carnal of a situation. So if somebody's going through marriage counseling, they have to, like Keena and Big G, they really just have to be in love with each other just to functionally get past the situation. Other than the 50 hormone shots that you got to see your woman go through, the sicknesses and all of this, you can't talk to your boys about it but they may be going through something. But I was just telling them, I had a particular business that was near the UIC medical district, and I had a lot of doctors come in. So if it wasn't for them, that I could talk to, and then we knew the conversation would just end right there. It wouldn't have to go to my social circles or what have you. 1 in 5 people have infidelity. Al Roker, 13 years married. We ate up 3 years of our marriage trying naturally. So so that's the hard-headed, prideful part. You want to do it naturally, but you really just have to be genuine in your own relationship and what works for you. But I have seen probably 7 to 8 marriages get killed because of the situation. And then mostly because of pride and people not wanting to really talk honestly with each other. They were just like, okay, it didn't happen. It wasn't meant to be. We're not meant to be. So they identify with the tragic issue of the situation, or what have you. They make it tragic instead of just making it a more fortifying situation. So,
absolutely, and I think also, Khalid, that your inner circle, your outer circle, and just friends in general and associates, I don't think they recognize how many times they ask you, "When are you all gonna get pregnant? What's wrong? Is it him or is it you? It must be you, Keena." Because you just on the go. You ain't doing it. You ain't doing it enough. Those type of comments, even though I would say that most of them were lighthearted, they weren't meant to be hurtful. They're extremely hurtful, because I would say for the majority of outer circle, and would you say, Big G, inner circle too, a lot of people didn't know that we were doing this. Because that's the other part of this. Thank you, Holy Spirit. That's the other part of this. There's a secrecy to this thing. Because you can't tell anybody that you're positive at home drug test. Not drug test, positive pregnancy test. Because you've got to wait till you get to the doctor to get the official pregnancy test. And then you've got to wait till that test comes back and tells you that you're positive, and then you gotta wait until it actually cultivates in your body, right? And it gets nurtured, and really you're supposed to wait until that first trimester is over with before you tell anybody that you're pregnant.
Wow.
There is an internal built-in secrecy of this thing that causes you, I would say, John, to be a cave, to go in a cave. Because I would say women, for me, I had a different kind of cave. Yeah, I would emote, right? I would be basket case hormonally, but I would also be in a cave. Because after you emote, Khalid, right, there's a baseline or foundation for that emotion. And you're never dealing with that. You're just dealing with all this top surface stuff, right? And so that was a cave for me. And crying every day, and the work that we do, Khalid. Having abortions in the social work field is like drinking water.
Yes,
that is a form of birth control.
Yes.
And having clients that were aborting children while I'm going through IVF trying to get pregnant gave me a whole nother piece, and maybe we'll do another show about that. It's a whole nother ball game when you're working with youth who are getting pregnant like you drink water.
Yes.
And they're aborting these pregnancies like you drink water.
Yes.
And you're desperately trying to love on your husband, to love on your wife, and you're trying to get pregnant, and these children are being aborted like this.
Yeah.
At $50 a shot. I'll put some real monetary perspective. Cook County, I don't know how much it is now, but Cook County at one time, you could get an abortion for $50. And
Wow.
if you did it, you had to have a huge time span in between the times that you did it, because you couldn't do it back to back. So then you went to Planned Parenthood, or you went to some other facility that costs more.
Yeah.
So I experienced all of that during, I think we did it for about 9 months. I experienced all of that in that 9-month period. And that's a whole nother emotional roller coaster. But Khalid, go ahead and speak to it.
Right. Would you suggest that a couple be in counseling while they're going through this?
Mm-hmm.
Tell me why.
You guys can come off mute. John or Gino or Terrence?
Yeah, I would. Go ahead,
John.
I'm getting feedback.
Oh, let me mute.
I was just saying, you go through, you need structure. Like right now, I mean, it's been 16 years together, 14 years married with my wife and I, and we still go off the contract that we formed in premarital counseling, before we got married, because you have boundaries, but you also need structure. So yeah, you need something to fall back on. And we were even saying earlier, I mean, sometimes you have very much the faith, but you are such in a survival moment by moment, injection by injection, or such situation like that, where you sometimes don't even fall on your face. So sometimes a contract or premarital counseling, the jewels that you may have gotten from counseling, I highly recommend it. It's safe. I'm still doing windows, lifting garbage, doing the back, all because those are the things that I agreed to do. So, and especially with IVF, which is such a caustic situation psychologically. And I think that happened. I think psychologically is the biggest thing about it. And that's why maybe the counseling is paramount to it, because I've had cousins stop trying and then they got pregnant. I've got 3 or 4 like that, and so the stress it's incalculable, and you don't know how it can be stressing you out. So I don't want to eat up a lot of time with that. But yeah, counseling, I love it, to be honest with you. We've gone through. Oh, I'm sorry. Counseling is paramount. We've gone through continuing counseling for our marriage, probably 10 years in.
Got it.
And we're 14 years this year. So I highly, and if we need a tune-up, we'll go right back.
Got it. All right. Anybody else agree that you need counseling while you're going through this process?
I would suggest that not only does the couple need counseling, but I would also suggest there be individual counseling as well. Because as our dear sister Kina was sharing earlier about all of the emotional roller coasters that she was on, imagine being a husband trying to support your wife in those emotional roller coasters while you're on your own emotional roller coaster. Wow. And the person that God has given you to do life with, you can't share where you are because you're trying to help them manage where they are. And so you just figure it out as you go. And the emotional pressure that puts on a man, not only to provide a safe space for her to process, but then you've got to provide financially, you've got to provide spiritually, you've got to provide emotionally, you've got to provide all of these different arenas, and you can't share where you are.
Yeah.
That's the piece where I believe the counseling pieces would be in really good order.
Or you don't know where you are, and that's what the counseling piece would help too.
Yeah, I know. Several times I wanted to say to Kina, forget the baby. I want to see you back in your right place. I want to see you back in your right frame of mind. Forget the baby. I wanted to say that, but I know how bad she wanted it, and and I wanted it too, but not to the expense that I was seeing it.
Yes.
Her go through. Because her going through, I was going through. Like I said, I just blanked out a couple of times. My mind had to be somewhere else in order for me to deal with it. Right. But still try to be there. So I know couple of times, well, maybe more than a couple of times, I couldn't even give her what she needed because my mind wasn't there, you
Right.
know, because of what I wanted to say but couldn't say. Because if
Yeah.
I had said it, we'd have been in a whole different place from that point. So yeah, the
Absolutely.
counseling definitely.
Absolutely.
And I wouldn't been able to receive it. Not
Right.
and it would have taken a mediator probably to explain what he was saying, because my mind was completely cloudy with drugs, with the IVF drugs, because it changes your whole hormonal, because your entire hormonal process, natural process, is being structured by man.
Mm. Wow.
The natural way of everything my body would do is now being clocked, timed, notated, dictated. Okay, we gotta put in extra drugs because your body didn't do this, or we're gonna pull back on that drug because your body did too much of this. You follow what I'm saying, Khalid?
Yes.
I wouldn't have been able to receive his feelings,
Got it.
honestly, and my part of me didn't care. Because I'm the one getting the shots. I'm the one da-da-da-da-da, right? So it goes back to, John, when you talked about that prideful piece, right? That pride kicks in real strong. And if you're not in a sufficient place to love your spouse past where they are, I can see relationships tearing. So I would be an advocate for people having counseling by a real therapist, by a real counselor. It can be somebody from your church, but real conversation. Not that cookie cutter, Jesus gonna make a way. He gonna make a way, indeed. Jesus paid it all. He sure enough did. God loves the little children. He sure enough does. All of those things. But I need you to talk to me about me yelling at my husband over the garbage top not being on.
Well, you need a battle plan. You have to have a battle plan. And what we're taught in Christianity is that pride and offense are the quickest ways to let the devil in on any situation. But
Right.
what IVF is a particularly brutal situation is that it isolates you, and that's the devil just loves that. So now you're isolated. You have the pride that doesn't let you talk, and then if you do talk, even a snippet of it, then somebody's getting offended, and then they're shutting down. So you're kind of messed up on either way, the direction you go, in my opinion. So.
Absolutely. The next thing I want to ask, I'm sorry, go ahead, Minister Terrence.
I was just going to add that I think in my experience, I've been a church boy my whole life, and the church does a horrible job dealing with issues centering around intimacy.
Say that one more time, T.
Horrible job. There are so many people that are scarred because of things, errant doctrine that was taught to them in their formative years that they're now trying to live out in their adult lives, that ain't got nothing to do with scripture, there's no biblical reference that can be pointed to. And if young people, old people, and people in between cannot have mature conversations around these issues centering around intimacy and all the things connected to it, pregnancy, difficulty getting pregnant, relating to one another, how to express love in a way that the other person receives it best. If we can't have conversations as the church around those issues, we're going to continue seeing people harmed, scarred, and maimed as a result. I work in a high school where there are girls they didn't make girls like this when I was in school. These are shapely, grown looking women.
McDonald's hormones. No, I'm just
that too. But
it's in the chicken.
But the interesting thing is, and a young lady said this to me today. She said, "Mr. Stevenson, you're the first Black man in my life that has never expressed any sexual interest in me ever. And she's 17 years old.
Yeah.
So I would dare say most women at some point in their life has either been sexually insulted or assaulted in just trying to live life. And as men, we're expected to, if we pick a woman, and God knits us together, and we're supposed to help mend those broken areas that are either expressed or unexpressed, right? And so as a result, you create these situations where it's difficult already to have conversation, but then you pile onto that infertility, and then you pile into on top of that bad self-image, body image, and all of these different things that are piled on. And as a man, you're trying to figure out, how am I going to help this woman that I love through this? How do I do that? You can't do that without God being involved some kind of way. You can't. It's impossible. But even with that, you as a man, at least the way I feel and the way I see things, as a man, you've got to have somebody that you can go and talk to. And I would dare say, because the best counselor I ever had was a white man who was not a Christian. Best counselor I ever had. He didn't give me those Christian cliches. He didn't have these rote answers right away. He listened to me, and he asked me to play things forward. Biggest argument me and my wife had while we were dealing with this infertility piece was about loading the dishwasher. I like to put things a certain way. She wanted them put the opposite way. It had nothing to do, as long as they got wet, I really didn't care. But because she was in an emotional place, I had to make some adjustments emotionally.
Yeah.
But that takes a level of maturity. And as a man, there's a lot of times where men just say, you know what? It's not that bad. I remember calling my father, and I was like, Pops, this woman is crazy. And he said two things to me. He said, well, son, is this the mountain you want to die on? And had to think about it. It's a dishwasher. It's not that big a deal. Yeah. And then the next thing he said to me was, you picked her. And he hung up the phone on me.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Go ahead, Khalid.
Love that. Love it. Love it. Question. When you go into this process, do you already have your plan B in the back of your mind?
Your ego won't allow that. I mean, I come from a huge family, 69 first cousins, 17 on my mom's, and 9 on my dad's. People, they just think about, sex or whatever. There's babies. I got uncles with 12, 14 kids just by themselves. So, when your environment, if you don't have a higher being that you have to deal with, your environment dictates your actions. So you're going in there with a mindset of success. And so I don't think your ego ever thinks about a plan B. You default to a plan B after a certain amount of failures where you can't even think about your mate even taking any more L's or going through so much stress anymore. Then you just finally, say, that's it, but I never thought about a plan B. It was plan A every day.
Got it.
And coming from the point of, you know what, God gonna make this work. A faith standpoint, you don't have a plan B. This is gonna work. God gonna bless this. We prayed about it. This is what's gonna happen. And to some people, they will look at that and say, if there's a plan B, then you don't have faith. But the reality is, you could pray about something, but God has the last say so.
Right.
No matter how much faith you got, God has the last say so. So, but coming from that perspective, when you believe in God, you don't have a plan B. And that's the thing. And I think that's a mistake. I think that's a mistake because you can still believe God, but he still has the last say so.
Absolutely.
And
Absolutely.
let's be real about it too. I mean, we have one totally blessed, but I wanted 4. So let's, and you still have remnants of being pissed off, to be honest with you. Like, what's up, God? You know what I'm saying? I mean, you feel blessed and thank you so much, because if you're not grateful, things get taken away, the church says. So, you want to stay grateful like that, but you're still like, well, what's up? You know what I'm saying? Like Keena gave the piece of people getting pregnant like water or aborting like water. Well, we had more than enough resources, more so than these teenage persons at their particular age, to take care of many more. But why one? Why just one? So I think you have a post-traumatic situation even afterwards, because you're always reflecting. Like, well, what's going on, God? Seriously,
Yeah, no,
I drive big trucks, 3 rolls of these trucks. I mean, I could have fit all the rolls. I could have put butts in all the rolls. I mean, but what's happening? So,
no, that was always my question. Always my question. And I would say up until recently. I'm 52 now. So, and we did this back when I was 40. And that was the statement from the specialist. And she was like one of the 3rd specialists in the nation. I had top-notch, care. You don't look 40, but your ovaries are 40. Your body inside is still 40. And constant question, how does that happen for them? And I know I ain't the best person, but I ain't the worst. You got kids dying, kids being killed. I could have loved the baby. Why couldn't I have had the baby?
Hell, it's getting put in garbage cans.
You hear what I'm saying? Being strangled to death at a prom, right? A teenager gave birth at the prom. She strangled the baby to death, put the baby in the garbage, and went back to the prom and danced. I don't, that those are questions that nobody has answers for. And I think even as a therapist, you can speak to that, Khalid. There are questions that you don't have answers for, but I think you would be honest to say, I don't have an answer. Right? But there are therapists out here that will try to give you answers that are just so like cliche, as Terrence would say, or just dumb. Don't try to answer everything. We're not all powerful, all seeing, all knowing. So we don't know the answers to this. But what we do know is we have this one life that we're living. So do I dwell in this space? Do Big G and I dwell in that space of we never gonna have no child? I'm now 52. Woo, woo, woo. Or do we live life to the fullest and love on our godchildren? Terrence's 3 children. Beautiful babies. Those are my god babies, right? I just met Shannon and John recently. Love on Lonnie. She's a beautiful baby girl. George has Emil. I call her Pearl because that's my baby girl right there too. And Khalid, you got Facebook TTs for your aunt and uncle for your baby girl. So, do you live in the moment and celebrate with others, or do you just live in the moment of saying, oh, woe is me and not me, and that's where that counseling piece could be very helpful. And I definitely wanted to go to the victorious side of this, because John and Shannon did have a baby girl, right? Terrence and Regina, they had 3 thereafter. One just turned 16, one is on the way to college, and then there's Thad. Thad is he's just a piece by himself. Emil is about to graduate from college, a wonderful artist, Those are things that's to be celebrated. And, right. And so that's what I really encourage couples to seek out counseling before you step in that space. Is your marriage not rock solid? No marriage is rock solid. But is it strong enough to handle the ebbs and flows of an IVF experience? That ain't for no punk. You don't step into that not researching, not understanding your 2.7, you need to know. You need to know. So don't step that way if y'all not ready emotionally together. And counseling is a means of helping you find some structure. Somebody got mail. That's you.
Well, I don't want to dwell, since you just definitely eloquently put it in Victoria's page, but there's a post-traumatic part to this, even if you are successful. Like, we have a baby girl that still wants us to adopt, and it's been 4 or 5 years straight. I mean, this is every day to the ride to school. So you have, God intended for us to live forever, and he definitely intended he have company and we have company too. So you still have a piece to this afterwards that may be affecting, the child that you did have or what have you, and I mean, we are still fervently, praying on adoption, just for that. So you have to think, and I flash back, I'm like, okay, is my 10-year-old having trauma from when we had trauma? So that just leads into, I'm huge on the therapy, from financial counseling to, and that's therapy in its own way to whatever, but real, and not to make light of it, but to real boot camp therapy from a real therapist like yourself. I wholeheartedly just definitely support it. It's a release, psychologically, emotionally, and it gets you to that spiritual level where you release and then let things go.
Gotcha. Brother T, let me ask you, what's your opinion about the plan B for folks thinking about going into it? Or what was your thoughts about plan B?
After our first 2 miscarriages, I think I was in a really dark place spiritually.
Okay.
And I think the first miscarriage, I was in a position of, let me help my wife through this. But the second miscarriage, happening 7 weeks to the day, just like the first one, it was a very, very low blow. And I didn't have a plan A or B or Z. I didn't have a plan at all. Yeah. And I think because I was so disoriented emotionally and spiritually and not having an outlet for that, I didn't know what to do. So I buried it. I just suppressed it. I didn't know what else to do. And we often, as men, do those things without even having a second thought about it. Your wife, like, one of the biggest things that I never understood was my old pastor back in Champaign used to teach that if there's a problem in your house, it's the man's fault. And I would wrestle with that thing. His thing was, your job is to be the thermostat. You set the tone, the temperature in your home. And I'm like, okay, but if I go to bed at night, we go to bed. Good night, baby. See you in the morning. God bless you. We wake up in the morning. She got an attitude. How is that my fault? She ain't got no accountability. So spiritually, I was spiraling, and I had nobody to talk to about it. I couldn't go to my pastor because my pastor was going to point the finger at me. I couldn't go to my father because his generation was, son, you just deal with it. My father spent a lot of time in the garage because that was his place. That was his space to kind of process stuff. And we'd be walking around the garage just looking at stuff. Yep, that's my lawnmower over there. That's my leaf blower. And I'm like, what are we doing? Years later, it makes perfect sense. Brothers, if you sit in your car 10 to 15 minutes after you get home, you know what I'm talking about. Or you go straight to the bathroom and you spend 15, 20 minutes in the bathroom before you interact with your family, you understand exactly what I'm talking about. So spiraling without having an outlet is a dangerous thing for a man. And so I didn't have a plan B. All I knew, I was trying to stay married at that point. I was just trying to stay married. I was just trying to listen. I'm in this to win this, and I don't know what I'm supposed to do, and I know I can't say what I'm really feeling. So let me bury what I'm feeling and just make it through the day. That was my plan. A, B, C, and D.
Got it.
Just make it through the day.
Got it. And right. That's powerful.
Wow.
That is real powerful. So the last question that I have, you know what? Feedback. Okay. All right. The last question that I had is this. Because this is like you all said, cry in the dark scenario, because it may have shame attached to it, despair attached to it, secrecy attached to it. How do we make it a topic, whereas if we present it, everybody could say, wow, hey, just like how we deal with cancer, how we deal with heart disease, how we deal with anything that challenges us, but we're going to be supportive. We're going to be proactive. We're going to have Susan J. Comer walkathons for this. How would we get that message out based on you all's experience?
Wow, that's a good question. I think one good thing would be to talk to the doctors, to have the doctors bring that up as a part of something that they suggest therapy, because the doctors did not say anything about therapy or anything about
wow.
Therapy. So if talking to the doctors, hey, you know what, we experienced this, it will be, very instrumental if when you talk to your patients about this, you suggest therapy, and let them go from there, because that's not even a thought. When you really think about it, it's not even a thought. But
you have some godless, incredible specialists out there. To be honest with you, that really get paid more the more problems that you have. So if you do have a psychological, spiritual, or emotional situation that protracts your issue, it just makes them more money, to be honest. Because if there was therapy talked about, then we would solve diabetes in the Black race and, obesity and a few other things, but it's purposely not talked about because it's a healing. Therapy is truly, truly healing. If you're open and honest, it's a full release from your heart, your soul, your mind, and it's a beautiful thing. But I think that there's so many specialists that's just they're just pushing the situation is what they're trying to get done. So
absolutely, brother T.
Okay.
I would suggest finding intentional ways to center male voices in this whole journey of becoming parents. When I don't know, maybe it's the way our society is constructed, or maybe it's the societal norms that we've adopted. But after you get married, it really ain't much about the brother no more. The wedding is about the woman. After you get married, well, before you get married, it's when you're gonna get married. When you're gonna get married. Then when you do get married is when you're gonna have kids. When you're gonna have kids. But rarely is the male perspective a second thought in these conversations.
Right.
And so finding ways to center the male voice in these processes, so that our voice counts, our voice matters just as much as the woman's. And until that happens, it's going to continue to be, everything geared toward the woman. After we experienced our second miscarriage, it was then that we found other couples in the church who had experienced the same thing. And my knee-jerk reaction to them was, why didn't you say something? When you saw us in pain and you didn't say nothing, well, we didn't know, we didn't want to, interject or whatever. But I'm like, bro, you a man just like me. Talk
Yeah,
to me, tell me, help me understand that what I'm feeling is normal.
right.
It's what I'm supposed to be feeling. Not that I stay there, not that I wallow in it, but I at least have a context by which I can say this is this. It's okay to feel anger. It's okay to feel despair. It's okay to feel anxious. It's okay to feel those things. I didn't know I was allowed to feel those things. And so again, I continue to suppress and bury things. And so
And
centering the male voice in these conversations, in my opinion, is going to be most helpful.
Got
and
it.
I just want to add it one more. Well, you hit it key earlier when you said that the church was horrible when it comes to things like this. Being ministers, it's up to us now to be that voice to start bringing it to the church,
That's true.
and to have some type of outlet for individuals that might be going through this.
That's
And
true.
just, and just to speak on men things in general, a lot of times the church doesn't do that.
At all.
Yeah.
And when they do, it's very patriarchal. It's not done in a biblically centered context, in my opinion. It's a
Right.
lot of tradition and roles that don't have nothing to do with scripture.
Right.
Absolutely, absolutely. And guys, my testimony is when I was going through my divorce, and
Mhm.
that was part of my church hurt. That
Mhm.
it didn't feel like my pastor wrapped his love and arms around me. Felt like my wife was getting support, but not me as the head of the household, the one
Mhm.
who led my wife and daughter to church every Sunday. But when
Mhm.
I'm going through my lowest point, it felt like the church turned around, you know. And guys, I remember me being in my 20s. I love kids. Like I have 11 God kids. So I remember during my 20s, I was like, God, when are you gonna make me a dad? I love my God babies, but I want to be a father, you
Mhm.
know. So I think we all have a level of empathy and sympathy to the issues that impact different people. So
Mhm.
you all are married. I'm divorced. So I do the why me? Why am I didn't cheat. I didn't
Mhm.
creep, you know.
Mhm.
All
Mhm.
my buddies who are married cheat. But they married to women who
Right.
absolutely love them. I
Mhm.
didn't do none of that, but I'm divorced. So we all have been through our journeys trying to figure this thing called life out. And I'm just so glad that you all had the willingness to be transparent tonight, the willingness to be vulnerable tonight and share your testimonies. I
Mhm.
want to wrap up with saying, George, now that you observed this for the last hour and almost a half, what's some of your thoughts?
First of all, like I said before, guys, I love you. You're some strong men. You understand me? Very strong. Um, like I said, it's a hard subject to actually talk about. You know what I mean? Even with men.
Yeah.
But a lot of what I was hearing in it is that we keep it a secret. We keep it a secret. We keep it a secret. But then again, like I said, how can I produce? Where is the love in keeping everything a secret?
Right.
You see what I'm saying? So how can something be born in the dark?
Right.
And I'm sorry. It's just how I feel because I'm a strong person and I believe in love. I believe in to the fullest. I believe, like the word said, I can love you back to life. I believe that because I don't speak of death at all. Period. So with that was a lot of pain in the conversation, a lot of pain.
Mhm.
And I would like to, like I said, just lift you up because this testimony that you gave me tonight,
Yeah.
it will help somebody else because
Absolutely.
I don't have to be there in the physical, but what you guys give me in the spiritual, I can take and speak on it like I was there because I know it came from some brothers who have experienced it. So it's like me being there with you all. And I thank you for your testimonies because, like you said, it is something we don't talk about.
Right.
And I believe that's where the enemy is. You see what I'm saying? Because we don't.
Right.
And that's, yes. So we had to speak that thing and speak it to our friends. You see what I'm saying? I'm gonna have this baby. We gonna do this, not keep it a secret. And then, like I said, when it fails, now you feel like my heart has been snatched out.
Absolutely.
Had you been talking to me while you was going through it, like you said, the brothers in the church, then I could have said, hey, come here. Let me talk to you. Let me show you where I've been with this thing. Okay. But like you said, we don't. We keep it to ourselves again, fellas. Once again, we give him that power when we should be spitting that thing out.
Yes.
Spit that thing out. So, like I said, I love you all, and all I could be is supportive. You hear me? I could be the best friend that I could ever be when it comes to that situation. Right. But I too, like Gino, if you being my friend and we're being for real, then I'll say, Gino, I think that's enough, because you're hurting yourself as well as she's hurting herself. And as a friend, I see it from here for the both of you. So when I say it to you, don't take it the wrong way. I'm saying it to you as a friend. It hurts. You see what I'm saying? Because it hurts me. Because I am your friend. So like I said, all I can do is be supportive in a situation like this and just be there for the guys, man. While you do what you do for the wife, I'll try to strengthen you and keep you going.
Excellent.
That's where I'll be.
My brother's keeper.
Yes, that's where I'll be.
Absolutely. Yes. Absolutely. Great commentary, George. Keena, we're about to wrap it up. So any final thoughts or comments?
It was amazing. Thank you, John. Thank you, Terrence. Thank you, Bay, always. And George, that was a bonus. Yours was a bonus perspective. And I know you helped somebody just being able to be sitting here, appearance-wise, and listening. That's something we can all do with our friends and our loved ones. It's just sit there, be present, and listen, And so that's my takeaway. And also, we got to do more of this. So we're going to have some more of these conversations about your voices being silent. It's time out for that. It's time out for that. And I want to be a part of the solution, not the problem. So that's my takeaway from this. I appreciate each one of you all for your stories, for your transparency, for your honesty, and just straight up talk. That's what we do here, right, Khalid? That's what we do.
Absolutely.
And Khalid, I'll let you have the last word, and we're out of here.
All right. So again, when Keena brought this to me, it was like, wow, what's my contribution? And my contribution is to come in as somebody who's naive, because now an hour later into it, now I'm not naive anymore. Now I know what other men go through. Now I know how to give empathy and not go to a judging place, And the more us men and men of color be comfortable in our skin, be comfortable in being vulnerable when we know we're safe to be vulnerable and to be transparent, because we can learn from each other and grow with each other. That's the better we do. I'm looking at like this Kanye West thing. We're so divided. We either on this side of the table or that side of the table. But think about the people who come together. So our brother Kanye made a disparaging remark about a culture of people. they came together and said, no, you won't talk about us. No, you won't. And they handled it swiftly, right? We need to learn how to be that way. When we come together and be supportive, where nobody can break the ties, you know? So I'm uplifted tonight, guys. I'm exhausted right now, but I'm so glad I participated in this because, again, it helps me in the role that I play in this world, you know? And it makes me just know that when the world is telling me that Black men aren't this and aren't that, look what I just been a part of. Look at the village that I'm in now, and that makes us better. So, baby sis, thank you for having me be a part of this. And thank you guys for welcoming me in.
Thank you all. Thank you all so much. Again, this is what we do. We have real conversations. We have real transparent conversations about real life subjects that all of us are experiencing, may go through at some point. Yeah. But more importantly, we can learn from each other's testimonies and not have to have each other's test. All the tests in life don't have to, all the tests in life don't have to be yours. You can look back and look at somebody else and be like, I don't want no parts of that. Let me do this a different way. And that's why we're here. So thank you all. Thank you, gentlemen. I feel real special. I'm a part of a gentleman group. And thank you, Bae. Thank you for being on here and being supportive as well. And our next segment, we're going to talk about illness. When illness, that to death do us part. Yeah, you're talking about infertility can be a tear. Illness can also be a tear and a ripper as well. So we're going to talk about when illness infiltrates your marriage and what do you do. So we will see you in November after Thanksgiving, after we all fat and juicy from the Thanksgiving table. And you're welcome to come back and talk to us and see us again. So we're going to sign off now and have a good night, everyone.